Hello, this is James Arroyo, and this is Chapter 13, Visual Aids. The reason why we use visual aids because sometimes the words that we use are not enough, and because of that, having a visual representation of what we mean is a lot more meaningful for the audience. So, visual aids, also called visual support, are images used in visual representations, which might include photographs, artwork, or drawings. Let's watch this video and we will see if this is a good use of visual aids or a poor use of visual aids.
The C-SPAN networks bring you long-form public affairs programming from the nation's capital and are a public service of your television provider. C-SPAN, created by cable.
Of national attention, and in case we have forgotten, because we keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record, I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball, and that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
This is a poor use of visual aids because it really serves no purpose. First of all, we already know what a snowball is. Second of all, the people who he's addressing, all of these senators, know it is cold outside, but even if it is cold outside, the visual of the snowball doesn't really add anything to the speech whatsoever. And not to mention that that's weather, not climate. But there are many different types of visual aids, but we can break them up into two-dimensional and three-dimensional. Two-dimensionals are drawings, photos, graphs, maps, graphs, charts. All of these things show something in a two-dimensional plane. These are the ones that we're going to be using most often in our PowerPoints. Keep in mind though, but let's start with those drawings and photos. Drawings can be used if you're describing a piece of art. Instead of having to describe every single thing, you just show the image. In the same way, if you're talking about the devastation of a certain event, then it is a lot easier to just show an image of that event. Now we move on to graphs. Line graphs are revealing trends by showing changes over time. Which one do you think this is? Is it top left, top right, bottom left, or bottom right? It is bottom right because you can tell that because there are lines and it is revealing a trend over time. We also have bar graphs. This is comparing quantities or magnitudes. That would be represented through the top left. Pie graph is like a pie showing proportions of a whole. This would be best exemplified by the bottom left image, and the pictorial graph would be signified by the top right because of the pictures. So let's go ahead and keep on going. Then we have different charts. We have flow charts. This is a step-by-step progression or procedure. So this would be represented through the top right image. The lamp doesn't work, so you have to check if the lamp's plugged in. If it isn't, plug in the lamp. If it's not, if it is plugged in, then the bulb is burnt out. If the bulb is bulb is burnt out, then replace the bulb. If not, repair the lamp or replace the lamp. I don't know who would repair a lamp, but I don't know. Anyway, so we also have informational chart. These are a series of key points within, and then there's data within those points. This would be shown through the top left image. We also have organizational charts. This is relationships in a hierarchy. So this would be represented through the bottom right side because it shows not just the information, but it shows subordination of the blue to the green, then the green to the gray and orange, but then also the gray is only subordinate to the orange. Then we have a table. This is systematically arranging numbers or words in rows or columns. This would be shown by the organization, by the bottom left, Now we move on to handouts. This is if there's any additional information that needs to be understood throughout the speech, you should always try to distribute these at the end. The reason why is because it can be very distracting if you do it in the middle of the speech and even in the beginning of the speech, because then people will just be reading the handout unless the only exception to this is if it is to guide the listening of the audience. Now we move on to three-dimensional objects. These could be objects, even people, or models. So they need to be an appropriate size so that the person can actually see it, and also visible to everyone when needed. Which of these three images would not be a good image, would not be a good visual aid to bring? Probably the spoon, because we all know what a spoon is. So why is bringing an object going to be useful in this situation? We also need animations, or we can use animations, but we want to be sure that they are appropriate to the given situation. We want to use them sparingly, and they should have a quick time to end, or else you will distract the audience with these weird animations. Then we move on to videos. Videos can be useful. In fact, there was once a person who did an informative speech on the horror movie stylings of James Wan and how silence was used to build suspense. They decided to show a few small sections of certain movies that showed this, and it was far more impactful than just describing those scenes. But when using them, they should be no more than 30 to 60 seconds because we want to hear you, and have it queued up and ready to go so that we are not waiting. A good idea is to embed it into the PowerPoint, especially for a Zoom call like this, because if you do it where it opens up a new window, then not only do you have to then stop sharing, but then you have to reshare the new window that just opened up, and then you have to close it once it's done and then start sharing your PowerPoint again. So it is a lot easier to embed them in the PowerPoint. So when using PowerPoints, embed images, audio clips, and video clips. It's a good idea. Also use minimal text. This is the big challenge that occurs with these sorts of visual aids, because instead what can occur is that people can write out every single thing that they're going to say, and instead of us listening to the person, we are now reading the images, reading what they're about to say. It should only indicate and organize our thoughts, but not have everything that's about to be said. And make sure that the information is needed. Don't put your entire outline. Don't put things that are not purposeful on the PowerPoint, just the things that are truly purposeful. Also, make it clear. You want to be sure that you're using a good font and a good size of that font that the audience is able to see it. This isn't as relevant in online situations because we can see it exactly how you see it. But We also have to account for how big the classroom is, and that will mean how big the font has to be so that the people in the very back row will be able to see it. But also we don't want to make it too big because then it looks a little bit weird. We also want to make it colorful. You can create your own template or use one of the ones provided in PowerPoint or in Google Slides or whatever. There are great templates that can just really, really get your point across in a very stylistic way. I mean, these templates, in other words, are good to look at. But we also want to watch out for whether or not the words are actually going to be able to be seen. Because on this online setting, these all would be able to be visible. However, in a classroom or a lecture hall where the lighting may not be as good, then we may not be able to see the purple, the black one, and even the red one. So we have many options, so please explore them. There are many, many, many ways to change up the themes and improve the aesthetics of your PowerPoint specifically. Also, if you are not talking about anything on the PowerPoint, then a good idea would be to just put up a black screen. Just Google black screen, copy that image, and paste it on the PowerPoint and just maximize it so that it covers up the screen completely. It is that easy, but the reason why we do this is because if there's nothing that's relevant on the screen anymore and you put up a black screen, then we are looking at you and we are not distracted by what is on your PowerPoint. It is the worst thing to have your PowerPoint be saying something, let's say, the aquatic effects of climate change, but now you're talking about the land-based effects, but you are still on the aquatic PowerPoint slide. In that case, if you have nothing, black it out. Another good thing that you can do is press the letter B, and that will black out everything as well. So we are going to watch a quick PowerPoint recap.
Well, what I tell people all the time, this is how we communicate in today's world, okay? This is what we don't want. This is typically called life or death by PowerPoint, right? We think in PowerPoint now. This is a true story. I was driving through Colorado a couple years ago. I hit a patch of ice on I-70 coming out of the Eisenhower Tunnel, going 65, 70, maybe 90 miles an hour. And I started spinning at top speed, and my life flashed before my eyes, and I swear to you, it was in PowerPoint. And how bad has PowerPoint got? This is actually the number of PowerPoint presentations per day. Look at that. It's 43 million per day in 2007, 54 million in 2008, 69 million this year, 88 million per day next year. Now, I looked at this chart. Look, that is growing exponentially. I looked at this chart. Here's home foreclosures for a year. You see, that's growing about the same way. I realized that PowerPoint actually caused the mortgage meltdown. So this is a thing I do called life after death by PowerPoint. Basically, don't do these things with PowerPoint. These are the things that people do that drive me nuts. And the only way to show them not to do this is to show them what not to do. So the biggest one I see, the most common PowerPoint thing, number one, people tend to put every word they're going to say on their PowerPoint slide. Although this eliminates the need to memorize your talk, ultimately makes your slides crowded, wordy, and boring. You lose your audience's attention before you even reach the bottom of your first slide. Second most common, font size is important. Size matters. Too small, and that's not good for anybody. On the other hand, too big, and you're looking like a moron. You just look like an idiot. Don't have your fonts moving. Keep your text stationary. There's nothing more annoying than text that does it. Blinking, don't have it blinking. Don't have it spinning. Don't have stuff flying around the screen. You drive people with ADD crazy. They're just like, oh, what's happening? Oh. Now, since I'm talking about fonts, people are really into fonts. I've noticed this. Here's a great, by the way, this is one of the best jokes that I know. Comic Sans and Helvetica walk into a bar. And ask the bartender for a drink, and the bartender says, sorry, we don't serve your type here. That kills at a font convention, guy. Oh, that's a good one. It's a type. I get it. The font you choose, be very careful. Everybody has their favorite font. The font you choose sends a message about who you are as a person. There's a long list of fonts. We pick one. That reflects our personality. We're sending an unspoken message. So, for example, if you choose Carrier New, it means you're organized and structured, and like to pretend you're still using a typewriter. If you choose Comic Sans, it means you think you're funny. And if you choose Times New Roman, it means you're lazy, apathetic, and unimaginative, and you always use the default. If you choose Georgia, it means you speak with a southern accent. If you choose Ariel, it means you like The Little Mermaid. Oh, a lot of Ariel people. If you choose Old English, it means you enjoy malt liquor.
Okay, we're really quickly going to pause right here because would it have been as impactful if those three were all showing as he was starting to talk about Georgia? Of course it wouldn't. So we want to find times when it is applicable to make these things show up as you click through the PowerPoint. So this could be used for comedic effect, but it can also be just to show something and that the audience isn't paying attention to the others and instead they're just watching as you talk. We're going to continue.
Didn't know this. Did you know this? We got a few more. Helvetica, that means you're a mayonnaise lover. That's a stretch. I'll admit that is a stretch. Blackadder, that means you're an African-American accountant. That one requires some thought. Sorry. And if you like wingdings, it means you're a nerd and you have no life. Now, if you type in all small letters, some people do that, all small letters, that means you're quiet, shy, and unassertive. If you type in all capital letters, that means you yell a lot. There's somebody over there. If you type a small letter followed by capital letters, it means your caps lock is stock on. Don't you hate when that happens? Usually going along for a while, you look up, oh, darn! And then finally, if you have a mix of capital letters and small letters, that means this is a ransom note and you are a kidnapper. Very hard to do, by the way.
So with these, it isn't as simple as this font means this thing for all audiences, but we just want to make sure that the font or the capitalization is not distracting, and some of these can be.
Bullet pointing, only... the fourth most common PowerPoint mistake, avoid excessive bullet pointing, only bullet key points. Too many bullet points, and your key messages will not stand out. In fact, the term bullet point comes from people firing guns at annoying presenters. This slide, by the way, has crashed PowerPoint. Apparently, there's a max about how many bullet points you can have, and I said, I pressed it. The other thing you can do is have animations. People love animations. They have stuff going, zooming in and out and left and right. You get seasick watching some of these. And turns out if you're a visual learner, your effectiveness as a speaker will go up with the more animations. But if they're easily distracted, they are not even paying attention to what you're saying. They're just watching the cool stuff. And there's regions to this graph. There's the simple but effective region, the active but confusing, the effective but boring, the active but ineffective, the dull but static region, the busy but useless region over there, the ADD only region there up in the corner, the useful amusing, the stupid confusing, the dull triangle, the hyper triangle, the sleepy square, the dizzying pentagon, and then everything else is just grouped into what's called pointless motion. This one slide, by the way, took me 3.5 weeks to make. It's true. It's how PowerPoint can suck the life out of you. Now, one of the biggest dangers today, and I'm telling you, I hear it more and more every time I hear a conversation, is what I call SAOD, or severe. I want to be the EIEIO of a company someday. It's actually my dream. Hi, I'm the EIEIO. Nice to meet you. Call me Old McDonald. That's all right. Now, kind of my final point, and this people do all the time, is they'll just have graph after graph just to impress you with their graph prowess. And I chose acronym usage. This is my real-time acronym usage. It pretty much goes up and down. I don't know why you'd need the graph, but you can see pretty much peak there. I'll use some more acronyms later. And there's just a chart that doesn't make any sense to you, but I just want to impress you. Here's an acronym letter distribution. C's, I's, E's, N's, and S's are the most common letters that I use in my acronyms. Here's a pie chart letter distribution. And here's, I have no idea what you use that for, but you can generate that automatically in PowerPoint. So I figured what the heck I did. Here's a line graph, the number of line graphs throughout my show. Here's a bar chart, number of bar charts, pretty much goes up and down. Here's a real bar chart. There's beer, wine, martini. That's the kind of bar chart I'm into. Here's a candy bar chart. Here's a salad bar chart, tomatoes, sprouts, spinach, and the different calories of each. Here's a sushi bar chart. This is a probability of illness, depending on what your favorite. There's a lot of detail in my act. Please pay close attention. Here's a bar chart of the number of bars, visits versus age throughout my life. Most people don't take the time to do this, but you can see when I was 17, I had the fake ID, so it was confiscated when I was 19, and my bar usage dropped dramatically. I spend way too long making these charts. When I was 21, I went nearly every day of the year. You can see it was about 342. It's kind of gone down through the years. I plan to drink a lot when I'm 40, a lot when I'm 50, and then retire and drink constantly. That's my plan. Thank you. Here's a spreadsheet of spreadsheets. Getting back to the charts.
So he then continues to talk more about charts. So we should not try, again, law of diminishing returns. The only reason why we don't have so many charts is because we do not, they will lose their impact if we use too many. However, in my experience, throughout public speaking, students tend to skew more towards not as many charts or not enough charts versus too many. So be sure that you do have some, because it's a good way to visually represent data.
Here's a spreadsheet.
Now we talk about some of the benefits. Why do we use visual aids? Well, they add variety. Well, they make it more interesting by adding variety, altering your delivery pattern, making it easier to understand your speech. Because think back to the listening activity that we did, where someone was trying to describe an image on a piece of paper, and it was your goal to try to draw that through what they were saying. It was very challenging to do, so that is a big reason why we use visual aids, to make information easier to understand. Also, it enhances the speaker's ethos, shows a better understanding of the material, and demonstrates a certain level of preparedness, because they actually did this PowerPoint, so they at least prepared the PowerPoint. Not to mention that it can also, that it can also improve your confidence, because if someone's watching your PowerPoint, they are not watching me, and therefore that reduces some of my anxiety, perhaps. Also, it can improve comprehension and retention. The apple is a pomaceous fruit of the apple tree species, or just show an apple. Again, visual aids are concrete. Words are more abstract because they are symbols that are put through a code to construct meaning. Whereas if you see an apple, it's an apple. It's concrete. It also helps see what you're talking about. Makes sense. Also, it advances your argument, can help make a point, and promote conciseness. You can describe the devastation of a certain situation, or you could just show a video and make that point in about 30 seconds or however long that video is. So remember to make it easy to see, prepare and polish your visual aids, because if you have misspellings or things like that, that can cause the audience to be distracted. Also, don't use illegal or dangerous visual aids or those that could offend the audience, because again, there is a goal orientation here, and if a visual aid is going to distract or offend someone, then of course we want to try to avoid that. Make sure that you're using them sparingly and professionally. Keep them simple and select the right visual aid for the right situation. So now it also considers, you should also consider the audience. Depending on the audience, certain visual aids will work, certain visual aids may not work. Think about if you are speaking to a group of adults, some visual aids may work. However, speaking to children about the same topic, you may need more engaging and more lively visual aids so that they will actually be engaged. Think about your speech objective. What do you hope to accomplish? If you want the audience to understand how to do something specifically, having just an image and then talking about it won't be very impactful. Instead, maybe show a video or maybe show a flow chart of things so that you are then showing how to do it. Also, consider what you are able to do in the situation. There are some things that we just can't use. If you're talking about how to build a computer, that may not be, you may not be able to actually go through it and make that computer. However, you could do a video and edit things. That way, it's a lot more impactful. And know the room that you'll be presenting in. If it's a small screen, if it's a big screen, that's going to that's going to affect what you are able to do with the visual aid and what will be effective. So, plan and choose the best type of visual aid for the situation. Make sure that everyone can see it. Control when it is displayed by blacking it out or opening it up again. Also, talk to the audience, not the visual aid. You shouldn't be looking at the PowerPoint and then back to the audience, then to the PowerPoint, then back to the audience. Instead, look at the audience and then you may want to indicate to something, but even then, you can still look at the audience while indicating to your PowerPoint. It shows a level of preparation and it also maintains that connection with the audience. Also, do not dim the lights for long periods of time, or else people may go to sleep. Also, do not use blackboards or dry erase boards. A big reason for this is because if you're drawing, then guess what? I am not looking at the audience. I'm not creating this connection. Instead, I'm drawing things on the blackboard or dry erase board. Explain the purpose of the visual aid. If we cannot intuitively understand why that visual aid's up, then you should explain why it's there. Provide sources for visual aids, especially graphs and charts, because if the graph and chart is from it doesn't have that source, then we automatically have to assume that it's from a non-credible source. Don't pass things around while you're speaking, and this is the most important, practice with the visual aid. The reason why we do this is because if we, let me tell you a story. One time I was in a public speaking class back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And I was tasked with doing a demonstration speech, demonstrating how to do something. I chose how to make a corn quesadilla because I had been making corn quesadillas my whole life, so I knew how to do it. It wasn't that hard. I mean, in fact, it was one of the first things that I knew how to do. Back when I was like 5 years old, I'd, be making myself a corn quesadilla, turning on the stove while my parents were away. And then when they come back, they're like, oh, who left the stove on? And I'm like, my sister. Anyway, so did I need to practice? Absolutely not. Because, I mean, why would I? Why would I? I'd done it so many times that it wasn't really needed for me to practice it. So, cut to the day that I'm presenting. I bring all my materials and I'm ready to go. So here's how you make a corn quesadilla. First, you take 2 corn tortillas and you dip them in water. The reason why is because you want to try to maintain the moisture of the tortillas. Then you get a skillet and you start warming it up. when you flick water onto the skillet and the water evaporates immediately, then you know it's warm enough. Then at that point, put the corn tortillas on the skillet and periodically flip. It doesn't matter how long you flip, but you should be doing it in about 15 to 20, maybe 30-second intervals. When you will know when it's done if there's steam rising from the middle of the tortilla. At that point, it is ready to move on to the next step. While you're waiting for your corn tortillas to cook, you should be getting the cheese ready. You can use pre-grated cheese, but I prefer actually grating the cheese because it maintains that moisture. Then you put the cheese on one of the tortillas, you put the other tortilla on the other side. Then you try to move the corn tortilla around until you are able to move the tortilla without having to put the spatula on top of the top tortilla. Then you can move it around for if you're able to move it around and it smoothly glides over the top tortilla, then it means that you can flip it. Then you flip. Did I have a heat source in the classroom? No. Little did I know the reason why the tortillas stick together is because the cheese has melted. So I flip, cheese flies all over the classroom. I'm petrified and mortified. The class busts up laughing. My teacher is just angry. So I'm like, and that's how you make a corn quesadilla. How many times would I have had to practice for this to be avoided? One time. So please, please, please practice with your visual aids so that you are able to use them effectively and you don't run into any of these sorts of issues. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you all next time.